All right, so I saw the Suicide Squad this weekend, and I really enjoyed this movie. This movie was a lot of fun, and I was not expecting it to be a lot of fun. I mean, I saw the reviews, and they were all really positive, and so that's why I ended up seeing the movie. But let me tell you, when I saw the first trailers that came out, I thought, man, that looks so stupid. And I did a trailer reaction on my channel, but I acknowledged and I said this looks really stupid. Like the humor doesn't look funny, the action doesn't look good, and the special effects look kind of cheap. But I will say that I thought the same thing about the Guardians of the Galaxy trailer. When I saw the Guardians of the Galaxy trailer back in, what was it, 2013, 2014, I thought, that looks so stupid. Shame on Marvel for greenlighting this, and I hope it loses money so that Marvel learns its lesson. And, Guardians of the Galaxy turned out to be one of my favorite Marvel films. Definitely the same case here with the Suicide Squad. I thought the trailers and the marketing campaign was absolutely awful. Uh, but this movie was extremely funny, extremely action packed, very good action and very good special effects. I read some headlines saying that this movie is bombing at the box office. I think the movie cost $185 million to make, and I think it only made 26 to 28 million at the US box office. And I guess the general rule of thumb is that for a movie to break even at the box office, it needs to make back double its production budget. So there is no way in heck that this movie is going to make back its production budget. So, yeah, as far as we know, this is going to be a box office bomb. However, this movie was also released on the same day on HBO Max, so I don't know if that had an effect on the box office. And I don't know how worried Warner Brothers is about a poor box office reception if they're releasing their movies for free on streaming the same day. So, yeah, I don't know. I think a big reason why this movie is bombing at the box office is because I thought the ad campaign was absolutely horrendous. So yeah, it looks like James Gunn has a serious problem with creating good trailers for his movies. Because my biggest problem with the trailer was I thought all of the jokes failed. Like, I thought they were lame, they were too fast, people were talking too quickly, it didn't seem natural. But yeah, for some reason, the people who made the trailers decided to put the lamest jokes from the movie and stick them all in the trailer. This movie is much funnier than the trailer suggests. So the storyline of the movie is that Amanda Waller, who's in charge of some prison somewhere that houses some very dangerous criminals, she's getting Task Force X back together, the Suicide Squad, and these supervillains who are in prison will be able to get time knocked off their sentences if they agree to participate in these black ops operations. And so she is sending them to some island in South America. I can't remember what it's called. I'm just going to call it not Cuba. So she sends Task Force X to not Cuba so that they can destroy a building that is housing a secret bioweapon or some kind of destructive weapon that could destroy the United States. This is going to be a spoiler review. No one watches these reviews anyway, so I'm going to spoil whatever I want. It turns out that in this building they are housing and doing experiments on a giant alien starfish that shoots out little mini starfish that get stuck on people's faces and mind controls them. And Suicide Squad needs to blow it up because the United States government is implicated in the experiments. And it'll look bad if that information gets out. So I'm going to start with things that I didn't like about this movie. There isn't much that I did not like about this movie. I thought the movie was too long. There were a lot of character development moments in this movie where, the action stops and the characters talk a little bit about their past, talk about their abusive dad or their drug addict dad, or about how they don't have any friends or something like that. And those are usually pretty good character building moments, but I think that they had just one too many of those. Like towards the middle of the movie, it got a little boring, and I wanted the action to pick up again. So that's really my only complaint about the movie. I guess another thing I kind of didn't like about the movie was I felt like the violence got a little disturbing in some areas. In my opinion, there are two types of violence in television and movies. There is the cartoony type of violence, like the Tom and Jerry, Itchy and Scratchy type of stuff, which is so, the violence is so exaggerated that it's actually hilarious to watch. But then there's the other type of violence, which is kind of more like, I don't know, Saving Private Ryan, or those, I don't know, some of those horror movies where you're just like, that's just gross, man. I don't want to see that. So I felt that there were a couple of scenes or a couple of action sequences where I thought, that's just kind of gross. I don't know. That just makes me feel uncomfortable. For example, there's this scene where Rick Flag gets captured by some guerrilla infantry in the forest, and Amanda Waller tells the remaining Suicide Squad members to go and break him out. And so they sneak in on the camp, and it's a really funny scene with that Tom and Jerry, Itchy and Scratchy type of violent humor where John Cena and Idris Elba are competing against each other to try and get the most kills, and then they try and come up with the most creative way of killing people. Like everybody in the camp, in the guerrilla camp, is asleep or just waking up or, not paying attention, and they're just doing these really, killing people these really ridiculous, over-the-top ways. But then they end up getting into the tent. The person in charge, breaks into her tent, and Rick Flag is sitting there drinking tea with her. He's like, "What are you doing here? These are the good guys. They're they saved me from the botched operation, and now they're going to help us take down the government." And then the lady who's in charge, she's like, "How come my men didn't alert me to your presence?" And then they're all like, oops. And then you realize, like, oh, they just killed a whole bunch of innocent freedom fighters in horribly brutal ways. And so it was weird. That scene was funny. And then when you found out that they just murdered a whole bunch of innocent people, you're like, oh, that is really messed up. So I don't know. There were a few scenes like that where you're just like, that's just gross, man. Like, that just makes me feel uncomfortable. So now, some of the things that I really liked about this movie, I thought this movie was hilarious. I was laughing throughout the entire movie, and other than some of the scenes that were in the trailer that I didn't think were very funny, most of the jokes landed very well in this movie. Right at the beginning of the movie, they're jumping out of an airplane to land into the ocean to swim to the beach of this, not Cuba. And the Weasel character jumps in, and then he immediately starts flopping around, and they're like, "What's going on?" And he's like, "Did anyone realize that the Weasel couldn't swim?" And then you just see him, he's like, "Rah, rah, rah," and just flopping around in the water, and people are rolling their eyes like, how did we not know this guy couldn't swim? And then, like, it shows a shot of him sinking into the bottom of the ocean, and one of the guys needs to swim down and rescue him, and like, that was a very funny scene. I don't know, when the starfish first gets revealed, it breaks out of the building and strikes a pose, and then it does a freeze frame, and then some text pops up and it says Suicide Squad versus Starfish the Conqueror. It's like, oh, that's funny. I don't know why. That just cracked me up. What else did I like about this movie? I thought the action was really good too. I mean, I'm just so sick of the generic Marvel action scenes where it's just, here's a mindless army of henchmen that just wave after wave of them attack the Avengers, and they just kill them one by one. This movie had a little bit of that, where the starfish can mind control some people, but that was only for a small part of the movie. The rest is just some really cool action sequences with when Harley Quinn breaks out of jail and she's mowing everybody down with her little, AR-50, AK-47s or whatever she has. That was a cool scene. I really like the special effects too. Like, yeah, this movie has a massive budget, and it really shows. I thought King Shark looked kind of silly in the trailer, but he turned out looking really good in this movie. I guess another thing that I didn't really like in the movie was it's totally random, and it doesn't have a big effect on my opinion of the movie, but I just thought it was weird. The polka dot man would, in a couple of points in the movie, he would get these sores or these blisters on his face, that were different colors, and then Idris Elba sees him vomiting up a whole bunch of color. Like, he runs, when they're sleeping at night, he runs into a bush and starts throwing up a whole bunch of colors, and then he tells them that he needs to purge his colors twice a day, otherwise he'll blow up or something like that. And I thought that that would have some kind of effect on the storyline, but it absolutely doesn't. It's just a random fact. It's just like, oh, they decided to dedicate time to showing this guy like struggling with polka dots trying to burst out of his face. He says that if he doesn't purge them, that he'll blow up, and there's no payoff to it. It's not like, I don't know, I was expecting that maybe he would blow himself up at the end of the movie to kill the starfish. Like, I don't know. So they could have cut that out altogether. Another thing I really liked about the movie is it made you feel for the characters, and not just the main characters we're following, but also some of the villains as well. I mean, there's a really sad line at the end of the movie with the starfish. So in the movie, the starfish was captured in space by United States astronauts, however many, 30 years ago or something, and then they take it hostage, and then they send it to not Cuba and lock it up there and do horrific experiments on it. And they want to try to weaponize its mind control powers, and I guess every time it mind controls somebody, it grows in size. So after 30 years of experimenting, it's grown to this massive kaiju size. And there's a sad line at the end of the movie when the after they're, the starfish is about to die because Rat Girl sent a bunch of rats to climb up and chew it to death, and Harley Quinn takes a javelin and stabs it through the eyeball. And the starfish is able to communicate to people by talking through the people that it possesses. And so, as it's dying, all the people with the starfish is stuck on their face are falling down. And then one of them looks at Idris Elba, and it said, "I was happy when I was floating alone among the stars." And then it collapses, and then the big starfish dies, and you're like, oh, that's really sad. Like, this villain that we're rooting to, see the Suicide Squad tear to pieces, it's like, oh, it didn't want to be there. It was just this poor little alien starfish that the United States government decided to turn into a monster. And I don't know. There's a lot of stuff like that where you're just like, oh, that's sad. You learn certain things about certain characters, about their, abusive parents or something like that. And you're just like, that's sad. So yeah, James Gunn is very good at making you care about really ridiculous characters, like a purple starfish from outer space with a giant eyeball in the center. So yeah, would I recommend the movie? Yeah, if you're not too squeamish about violence, there's a lot of there's some violence in here that I didn't like. I get pretty squeamish around the neck stuff. If people get shot in the neck or stabbed in the neck and they're choking on blood, I hate that so much. There's a lot of that in this movie, so if that makes you uncomfortable, then you should probably skip it. But yeah, I think under better circumstances, if they didn't blow it with the first Suicide Squad film back in 2016, and if they actually had a good ad campaign, this would probably be a very successful movie, but unfortunately, too many factors combined to make this a box office flop. So, better luck next time, James Gunn and Warner Brothers. There's another DCEU film to throw on the bonfire. Anyway, those are my thoughts on the movie. If you think I'm wrong, tell me why I am in the comments below, and I will catch you next time.